All right, I'd like to call the Capital Improvement Committee meeting to order on February 17th, 2021. It's 6:33 p.m. Um, Because we lack our quorum of 5 right now, I believe. I would believe we should skip the minutes for now and hope somebody else pops in before we finish. Does that require a motion, Erica, or?
No, we can't vote.
Oh, yeah, there you go. That went off to a word at all. Present to speak. Is there anybody present to speak that's not on the committee?
Hi. Carol and I are here tonight. Carol, do you want to start?
We just wanted to speak to the project for the Talmadge Road property acquisition and hope that it's going to be included in the first year of the plan. One quick question that I had was what figures you're choosing and source of funding. I want to verify what that was going to be, and also what how you're planning to show any possible state grant funding because I want to do that in a way that's very clear and very open as to how that's going to be handled.
Donna, can you share your spreadsheet, or Erica, and we can show you how it's entered in our plan as of right now.
Should be able to share, Donna. You're muted.
In essence, there's two entries in the spreadsheet. One is showing the full amount of the purchase, and then the next line is the quote expected or hopeful state grant. So it reflects the actual cost as well as the what we hope to come in for the grant.
Okay. I was wondering if there's any way that you could show the potential income from the state as a maximum figure, because we can't, this is going to be contingent upon receiving a state grant, but we can't guarantee that we would get a grant at the maximum reimbursement rate for the cost of the property itself, at 50% as we have in the past.
Right.
And I want to make sure.
And years now, I know you haven't settled what the final price is to purchase it either, based on waiting for the appraisal and things like that.
Right, and we're going to be discussing the appraisal at our meeting that starts at 7 o'clock this evening. Yeah, so we're not in a position to do it, but I just want to make sure that we're not confusing anyone by saying that that's a firm figure on potential state reimbursement, because we can't. And Kathy can speak to the issues we're having waiting to find out whether there's even going to be money to apply for. So maybe I could yield to her about that.
Yeah, we just wanted to be sure, we're still waiting to hear back from the state. We were told back in November that they were hoping to make announcements in December. We have heard that people who applied for grants last year, they're going to be announcing those awards on January 24th, but they haven't made the announcement for this year's grant round yet. And as Carol mentioned, we're not planning to move forward to discuss anything further with the family, the sellers, until we know for sure there's going to be a grant round. And we can also make the purchase and sales agreement. Once we know there's going to be grant money available, we can make the purchase and sales agreement contingent upon getting a grant. But we can't tell you exactly how much that grant will be. We're hoping, the state allows up to a 50% match. We've been very fortunate in the past for both of the other purchases. We've gotten 50% matches. It's very helpful for the town to show you know, in their accounting that basically they're supporting the purchase and the ancillary costs for the legal fees and so on. So what you have listed right now in the reserve budget and in the open space budget, that those are perfect numbers for us to be able to show the state if we make the application.
Yep, and that was our intent. You know, we understand there's money left or money in the open space fund right now, some of which you're expending this fiscal year for the appraisal and legal fees and such. So that's kind of a moving number as well. But in concept, the intent was to put those 3 lines in there and say this, as of right now, this is what we know. It's obviously subject to approval by the selectmen, the Board of Finance, and I believe ultimately town meeting as well. So the town meeting may be, you know, you may or may not have a different outcome based on what the net cost to the town is. You know, if you don't get the grant, you know, obviously the cost is higher to the town. And if you do get it, that's great. And it's up to the town and townspeople to decide.
Yeah, and if we get a great grant from the state, there would be some reimbursement, state reimbursement. But I just want to make sure that we don't mislead anybody into thinking that we are guaranteed at the maximum 50% reimbursement rate. And that was
Yep. I think you've been pretty clear with that, and part of it is how it gets presented on a spreadsheet and such. And
Yeah.
but I believe the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen are familiar enough with the project by now to know that it's, you know, it's in progress, and you know, you got to meet the state timelines, and the town has their timelines to follow as well.
Okay, well, and we appreciate you taking the time to listen to us tonight, and thank you very much, and thanks for all your hard work. It's a very tough job doing the CIP plan, I know.
Yeah, we appreciate the efforts you make as well to try to obtain some of this land.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Anyone else present to speak? Hearing none. Alrighty. Plan review. 2021 to 2026 is the next item on the agenda.
Stuart,
Yes, Mike.
I went back through emails. Did we get a copy based on what we finished last week?
You may not have, because Donna did send it to me, and I apologize for not sending it to everybody else, but the numbers change so quick when we throw things at her. I figured just follow along her thing, or
That's fine. I can follow her sheet. I just with it off the screen, I needed something to work with to make, you know, but if
yeah.
Let's just keep going forward.
Fortunately, the computer I'm on, I can't email it out to all you guys, so unless you have it, Erica can blast it out. No, you're muted too.
Not a Zoom meeting if I don't say that once, right? If Donna could share her screen, then we can all follow along. I think that's good. I know I have trouble printing it, so I'm sure even if someone wanted to print it and look at a physical copy at home, they'd have difficulties.
And you know, I certainly look to input from the selectmen and the Board of Finance representatives to let us know if you know, you're not the whole committee, but does it look reasonable enough, or did we make any mistakes to move this forward?
So I have a big, and I think I expressed this last week, and I'd like some input from others on the call, and I know Christina's driving, but if she can weigh in. Year 5, I don't think that we can leave this plan the way that we did with multiple items not assigned a source in any way, shape, or form. They either have to make it on a plan and we have to find a way to fund them, or we have to take them off the plan. Because then it's not, yes, it's just a planning document, but it needs to be a real planning document. So I just don't think we can leave projects unfunded, and I don't know that we've done that in the past.
Realistically, the school projects, which are the bulk of what's there. We talked about if the new school doesn't go through, the plan B would be to renovate one or both schools, in which case all those would probably end up on a bond as well.
So I think we need to represent, the plan needs to represent what we really think we would be doing in year 5 of this plan. Does
Because
that
I
make
believe-
sense to others? I mean, I don't think we're putting forward a real plan if we just drop projects in and zero way in which we think they could realistically be funded.
It's not a plan unless you have a funding source.
Thank you, Donna. And that's how I
Yeah.
feel about it. We have to give them something. Are we willing to include in a 5-year plan, 2 different funds, or do we just
Well, yeah, in
go one or
essence,
the
you
other?
were,
But we can't just leave them there without a funding source. It's not a complete plan, and we have skipped our duties, in my opinion.
you could or should represent those in another bond. Just you will be listing 2 bonds in there because you're not going to be doing both. You're not building a new school and renovating the old schools, at least in this plan. So for the school projects, and hopefully in a year or 2, we may know more concretely as to where we're going with this. You could list that out, all in the bond. There's a whole bunch of them there.
So then, correct me if I'm wrong, and please, someone else feel free to weigh in. If we put forth this plan and put 2 bonds, hey, pick A or B, but we're not going to do any of those projects until year 5. Is that really the plan that we see the most realistic? Is that we're going to throw every school project out till year 5, and say we're going to build or renovate a school, or we're going to do all of these projects in one fell swoop? Is that the realistic plan we need to put forth to first the Board of Selectmen, and then to the Board of Finance and to taxpayers?
If the school building committee could come up with a concrete date when they're going to be done with their recommendation, we could distribute that to.
Yeah, but
you know,
Stuart, we
perhaps
know that they've met one time for 2
Yeah, oh, I
hours,
know.
and that's not realistic of us. But our job is to come up with, regardless of that decision that has not been made, to come up with a sustainable plan. And this, in my opinion, is not a sustainable plan. I'm not sure how we put this forth to taxpayers and then take us seriously.
So we often in year 5 have stuff that just, I wouldn't say that it's as trivial as pie in the sky, but it's stuff that we just can't narrow down yet. Right? So I think possibly maybe a solution to this is that we, as Stuart said, we show 2 different bonds. We can call one, bond A and bond B, or whatever we want to, municipal improvements A, municipal improvements B. And then in the little cover letter, isn't there a cover letter that goes with the plan?
There's a narrative, yeah.
A narrative, right? Then that could be clearly called out that says, be advised, year 5 shows municipal bond A and municipal bond B. These would not both be funded simultaneously. One is an alternate to the other. And because there are other planning efforts underway, we don't know. We're just trying to represent the possibilities, right? Because I think it's in planning to represent possibilities.
And I wouldn't take the projects off the plan because realistically, they're going to come up at some point. And, Phil might come in next year and go, hey, we really need to do that boiler now for
Right.
$60,000. And that might move into, year 1 next year. We don't know. We have, trying to bring out that crystal ball for 5 years ahead of time is difficult. And one of the unknowns is, what route, if any, is the school going to be doing? If they choose not to do either project, then based on the, I think, 1.7 million or something that the 500,000 for fans in the Hall School, we don't have funds available for that, out of local anything, be it local funds or capital reserve. Just that one project will wipe us out for the year, assuming we didn't have to pay for anything else. You know, some of the small ones like some of the concrete on the light poles and things like that, we can do those, but there's a lot of money there set aside, for projects for the schools. Mainly heating and ventilating and paving is a large part of all of that, and part of maintaining those buildings. And thinking of our cap of local funds, we could do a few of those over the next few years, but I think year 5 is the place to park them. And like I said, Mike, bond A or bond B, it's with an explanation letter that says it's not necessarily both. But, based on further information to come.
So maybe what we could do is have another set of columns. We could have a 25-26A column, and then following that, we could have a 25-26B column.
I would be more comfortable with that because it
And
wouldn't
lay
be
it
in the
out.
same plan.
Right. It would be 2 different plans. And I also think that if there's a note in year 4 for these municipal projects, we wouldn't be bonding in year 5 because you bond after the projects are completed and how much money you need. And I don't think that 1 year is enough time to do all of those municipal projects. I think you'd have a note for 2 years at least until you get all your municipal projects done, and then you're ready to bond.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you may move a lot of those to year 4 to accomplish that. If you feel you need them earlier and you're dedicated to fixing up the existing schools. But from what I understand, the overall concept of refurbing one or both of the schools is in the multi-millions of dollars, based on that study that I saw.
Yeah, that's correct, Stuart. That is a little bit more clear cut to the taxpayer who would be looking at this plan to say, here it is broken out. It's either going to be here or here, and it depends on how the town moves forward with the school project. I'm just not comfortable leaving them on the plan with no funding source, but just saying, we're going to go with this or this. I think we've skipped a little bit of the hard work.
I wouldn't say skip necessarily, but based on the information we know.
Right, but Stuart, we
it's the
know our
best-
plan has to include funding sources, so we can't just
Mhm.
skip that part. We have to do the work of putting it together and showing it's gonna look like these real dollars or these real dollars.
Mhm. So you're comfortable that the plan A and plan B column?
Well, I'd like to look at it and see how it looks.
We just have to decide which one's A and which one's B. Is A new school and B is renovate existing?
I think one is the new school numbers we use, and the other is, I won't use the term renovating, Mike, because we don't want that to be confused with renovating to new school, but,
Yeah.
a continuation of individual capital projects. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm just saying, which one do we want? Do we want A to be the new school, or let's just pick one?
No, make B the new school. And I say that just so no one thinks we're putting one above the other, because we're really not. We don't know what direction the taxpayers it's going to come from the school building committee, but essentially the taxpayer is going to move us in that direction. We just want to prepare for both.
I believe Donna has a fair bit of work to make all those entries happen. Is there anything else you'd like to discuss while she and I wouldn't put it upon her to finish this minute.
No, but Donna, could you email me or forward me what you sent to Stuart, and I can share my screen so you don't have to do this on the screen?
Sure.
And then we can take a look at the rest of the years of the plan to see if we agree with them. If we make Donna continue to screen share,
Yeah.
she won't be able to even make some of those adjustments so we can see them.
Okay. So,
She could even just send you that one, right, Erica, since it's on her screen already?
She could, but she may not have saved it yet. Click on it.
okay, Erica, that should popped in.
I got it. Thank you, Donna. All right, now I'm going to back to Zoom. All right, folks. It's a lot harder when I share. All right. This is why I do this at work and not here. All right, so this is all right. This is year one. And again, we can't vote until Carrie said she would be here later. I don't know what later is. I think this is year one is what's represented in the selectmen's budget moving forward. And if my math is right, and recall from our meeting last night, Donna, we said the net increase on the selectmen's budget from CIP is $100,000.
Yes.
So those of you who are on Board of Finance, I'll encourage you to remember that. Represents a $100,000 increase.
Is there anything we should preemptively remove from year one? To get you into a figure your Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen are comfortable with, or are they comfortable with what's there now?
Listen, we know a lot of these projects are necessary. I mean, I do. I don't know. The Board of Selectmen hasn't been presented with all of the details of the plan unless they're following our meetings on their own. You know, let's go through them and, you know, what would we cut, if anything? The fire panels at Center and Hall School, I think we talked about the concern over safety if we did not move forward with those. I'm not comfortable cutting those from this plan.
Yeah. And Phil certainly represented that as his
Yes, he
highest
did.
priority.
We don't want to know that the time we shouldn't have cut them is when there was some sort of emergency, that's for sure. The chip seal of the lower parking lot. I'm sorry, Mike.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry, I'm saying two things at the same time. I think that we put the effort in here. I think we have such a volume of work that needs to be done, and we've moved things out to make year one as palatable as possible. I'm comfortable with year one as it is. You know, it's an increase, but as a planning endeavor, we've spent a lot of time over the last year or two talking about that there is just a requirement to spend more money on town infrastructure and major expenses, despite the fact that it's not palatable tax-wise or money-wise. It's just how we have to run our town.
I agree with Mike. You know, we could go through it line by line again, but at some point we recognize that we cut a considerable amount of dollars out of the plan for the current fiscal year. And how long do we continue to push these infrastructure items down the road? They're going to cost taxpayers many more dollars if we don't do them sooner rather than later.
I actually feel pretty good about year one, and I would almost like to pull a couple more projects back into year one, but I don't want to see the total to go higher. So I guess my feeling is it's as cut as I feel comfortable cutting it.
I mean, the two big things in there are the fire panels for a little over 100,000 and the money for the school building committee to start, their research and such. Those are, two big ones that you have to take as a total lump. I mean, you can't lease a fire panel and you can't lease a consultant. So
Right.
it's kind of an all or nothing thing. So just based on those two items, that's where that number is and why it's there.
I'm comfortable. Obviously, we can't vote on that, but
Yep.
I agree
Understood.
with Mike. There are some things I'd like to pull back into there, but we do the best that we can with what we have. And my comments were just, when we're not going to be bringing to zero, if we, at this point, unless the Board of Selectmen were to cut a considerable amount out of their budget to be able to offset something like this. So.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to
I
cut
see
almost every
Christina
small,
unmuted. Yeah.
you'd have to cut almost every small project to afford the 2 or 3 big ones. So,
I don't know if Christina wanted to say something.
I just wanted to say I agree about year one. And I think it's as good as it can be right now. I don't think we can do any better.
very good.
If we move, I apologize, I have to keep moving our little boxes. When we move into year two, I know Steph had asked at one point, and I said we would investigate whether or not moving some of those paving projects and putting them all together would save us a lot of money. Excuse me. So for budget purposes, Troy was able to get some quotes on all of them. None of them, I'm sorry, not all of them were in the same year. So in order to do that and spend it all to potentially save money, we'd either have to move some projects pretty far forward or move some projects pretty far back. And what we found was there was little to no savings. And simply because when they're doing a project in the same place, not the same town, that's where the money was saved. But every time they have to pick their equipment up and move it, some additional costs were incurred. So there wasn't a large savings there. We would have
Okay.
hoped, but the dollars were pretty. And what he did find is that a lot of the numbers we use were pretty spot on.
Okay. Those
So
are
that's good to know.
good to know, for better or for worse. Yeah.
Yes. And that's what Troy had, that was his opinion before he went out to them. And the numbers showed just about that. So. All right, so I'll scroll up to year two and you tell me if you need to want me to go down and look at anything else. So is this the window replacement? Sorry.
And timing is everything, a year from now, again, are we investing in these buildings or not? And I don't know if the selectmen, as part of the building committee or the building committee themselves, of what to do with center school and hall, the potential reuse or
Right.
whatever may happen to them.
That could change some of these year too.
If the plan ends up that town office building moves to center, well, then the investment in the windows is good either way. If you're going to tear it down or sell it, well,
I think it depends on what you use it, and I think that Superintendent Stevens alluded to that. The window replacement, if you were going to be using that building for usable space with individuals, yes. If you were going to use it as storage space because you didn't need the whole building to house different things, then maybe the windows that were there were efficient enough. So I think there, and this is a conversation he and I had about, would those windows need to be replaced if the town were to take over that building, we didn't use it for offices or have individuals in there and use it as a storage facility because you didn't necessarily utilize the whole building in that manner. What would that look like?
Yeah.
So the usage of the building may take some of these projects off. Certainly there wouldn't be a need for clock, PA, and security strobes, I don't think, but I don't know, right? What would the repurpose of that building look like and what things would you need? Most of our staff, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say all of our staff knows how to tell time. So we could go with a digital clock, it would be fine.
Yeah, and the same discussion would be, Hall School, do you spend 100,000 to pave it or 60,000 for a boiler? A little bit depends if the fields are critical to continue to use for recreational purposes, and which they probably are. Some of that work to the parking lot would still need to be done.
Yeah. And this, I'll keep going and you all tell me
Yep.
when you want me to stop scrolling. Come on. So there wouldn't, if the plan were to stay the way it was, and there wouldn't be a large impact to the budget year over year because we'd be right around the same 650 range. So you'd see that big increase over year one, but over the 2 years, wouldn't see an impact like that. So there is that bonus. I'm going to move to year 2. I mean 3.
It's okay with me.
Yeah.
All right. So it looks like year 2 had that lease payment for SCBA's, and year 3 has a new lease payment for another public works dump truck. And no school projects. So only years 1 and 2 had school projects.
1 and
1 and 2. It looks like there was nothing.
right, because 3 and 4 is not.
We moved everything out. Okay. So you've
Right.
got money, the second portion of money for reval, a dump truck leased, phase 3 of the Village Hill drainage, or part 3, paving of the bus lot, money into open space, deep funds for radios, bay floor replacement, and survey and architecture.
So question on line 106. That was the later idea of reducing the money for Village Hill, but replacing it with the excavator payment, right?
Yeah, year 1, I believe we dropped it to 20,000 for supplies, so to speak. And I think it was 11,000 for the excavator.
So year 1 was rental though, right?
No, we changed
No,
that at the last iteration.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. I thought we were going to have him do 1 more year and ask him to give us actual numbers. Okay.
We did, and then when we started playing around with it, I think we had a long, lengthy discussion, Mike, and then if I recall, it
I
went
remember.
to put it
Yep.
into year 1 and reduce the scope of the
Right.
project in year one to offset that.
Right, which is great in year one, but then it's a commitment to years of payments.
Yes, but
Which we had in year two. We just didn't have any, we had it year two going forward. Now we just have it year one going.
Yeah, I guess I remember the discussion about year two was that we had asked Troy to give us some sort of a cost analysis, and he really hasn't. And that, there was some discussion that, well, here's another year, get us some cost analysis so we know if we commit to this excavator, you're going to use it and save money on it. But I guess maybe that conversation evolved and I didn't realize it moved back to year one.
yeah, I think it evolved into, let's get working on it, get something done instead of waiting another year, and hoping for the best. And if they have that machine in place, not only there are other projects that they may run into, but they could actually make progress with this. And it's a test and a trust of Public Works to be able to kick that in gear and start digging up that hill and laying some pipe in the ground.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has possibilities. The problem is it's a very expensive test, and it's a test using the taxpayers' money, because if the test fails, we're committed to that payment.
I think he was talking, what about $6,000 in rental costs, roughly speaking.
I think it was per
And
month.
it's
We would be spending $12,000 a year to rent the machine.
3,000 a month, he said.
3,000 a month. So, and he rented it for the 3 months.
So
Right,
that's
so we're
9,000, and we're
close, right,
talking,
we were
what,
We were
12
at
for the
a
lease?
payment, a lease payment.
Um,
And I think that's where that conversation evolved from.
Yeah. I just don't want to be in a position where next year he comes back and says, listen, you bought me this excavator, it's working great, but I need a staff person to operate it. Otherwise I can't use it. And then you're making the lease payment on something I can't use.
Yeah.
And then we not only did we buy the bathtub, we bought the baby and the water too.
Right. So I'll tell you two things. One, Troy has been honest with us in the beginning. He feels like we need at least one more, if not two. He's proposed 2 more to the Board of Selectmen. Those have been in our public meetings, individuals in our small crew. So that's, he also recognizes that wanting them and the town being able to afford them oftentimes are 2 different things.
Right.
So, but he, has expressed us multiple times the value of what his staff, as it exists, can do with the equipment at their disposal when they're able to work. We also lock ourselves into only being able to do things and being at the mercy of Mother Nature, who right now is not our friend.
Of course. Yep.
So, last year with a machine like this, he could have gotten a lot done in the winter. This year in the winter, is really hit or miss. So it depends on those things. But when you rent it for an entire month, you hope that you're going to get the entire month's use out of it.
Sure.
All right. And there was nothing in rec in year 3. I'll move over to year 4. All right. And this is where we had done, I don't see, maybe you're working on this now. No, because she already sent it to me. The 245, the no interest, that's the bond anticipation note, right? In year 4. She's muted, but I see her shaking her head, yes. I think my only concern with that year is we're only putting $41,000 into the capital reserve. I'm going to scroll way down because there are not many projects. School-wise, we've got the land and the new school together in one note. Liska Road culvert projects. More on Village Hill, open space dollars. In that bond, we have a firehouse addition, engineering for another firehouse, and $80,000 for a parking lot replacement. Oh, and walking track lighting.
Has there been any discussion about funding for bridges in terms of, is there state or federal money available and the pros and cons to that?
Not as of yet.
Have you learned anything in your research about Depot Road Bridge yet?
Yeah, we still don't believe it's ours.
Well, that would be amazing if that's true.
Yeah.
I really hope that is true, but I find it hard to believe because, I mean, it's half in
It's a-
our town.
Yeah, it's a research work in progress, but God bless you. Yeah, everything pinpoints to the last time it was repaired, it was not by the town because it wasn't owned, it was Tolland. So we will keep you posted.
Yeah, so that newspaper article said the state did the last refurb,
Mhm.
and then the rebuild when it collapsed back in the 70s. I feel pretty sure Wellington paid for half of it then.
Yeah, so we'll keep you posted. Like I said, it was not on our bridge report, not from the state, nor in what Carl had. And so that's where I started, was our last state bridge report, and that was not on it.
Well, maybe the town line is on this border of the river at that point for some reason, and so the whole bridge is in Tolland. That would be
Wishful thinking, I think.
I know.
For what I know of the Ketchkus Road Bridge project, there was an opportunity for the state using, I think, federal bridge money to pay for a lot of it, but it came with a lot of construction requirements in terms of size and loading and all that sort of stuff. And the town still has a match if they accept the federal funds, but you end up with a better bridge, at least in the federal government's eyes.
When you use their money, you have to follow their rules.
That's right. Well, that's the way life works.
Goes.
So the town decided to basically engineer and put in their own bridge where the net cost was about the same, but you're back to a one-lane bridge. But given the limited servicing of residents up there, it's worked good for many, many years. So that's what they did. Liska Road, if that's a bigger project, they probably should start looking, or at least when they start doing the engineering of it, is there money available to build an appropriate bridge there, and what would our cost for either using federal money or just doing it ourselves? So that's something hopefully the town engineer and public works does a little looking into.
I want to say that the town had to pay 20% if we went with the state or with the federal bridge, but it was 20% of a $1 million bridge, so it was like $200,000, and then it was pretty much the same to just do it without all of that. so that's so you're right to do that's what happened back then.
Right, and if their fancy bridge doesn't fit in with your, idea of that area and that ruralness, right? What else are you changing as part of that? So that's interesting. So Mike, I'll keep you posted on the bridge.
I realize it's become a pet request of mine at every meeting to ask about it. I'm just.
I have it as big because it's not a project on here. I don't think to bring any of my documents for this meeting.
We have been upgraded.
Hang on.
Oh.
The weather report just popped up.
I can hear it in the news over my shoulder too. All right. So, and that the walking track was the last in that item. So then that brings us to the 2 years that will show A or B. And sorry. This has the all-purpose field lighting. We removed the turf field, $100,000 for an engine tank repair, $15,000 for open space, Village Hill drainage, Schofield Road as part of a bond, replacing yet another public works vehicle in the plan. Come on. The new school. bond. And then all of these school projects, which we talked about putting off into an additional. We have grant next to whole school generator. So that our hope is that we'll get a grant. Is that a fund source though? I know I seem like I'm nitpicking on that, but that's not a real fund source.
There have been some opportunities between the school security grant, which is now stopped at the moment. I haven't seen any latest announcements of that. And Homeland Security pops up every once in a while with a grant. And that's one of those things that if the town office building was there, you could probably declare that as some sort of critical facility and do something there as well. I mean, obviously handicaps town office building operations when the power goes out in terms of, you know, payroll and telephones and that sort of thing. That, you know, right now you probably got about 2 minutes before all the UPSs go dead, and then you're done. So yeah, is that a wishful thinking? Yes, it's both in terms of the project, I believe, and the funding source. I would call the word grant in there is similar to, you know, steep. Of you hope it comes, but you know, if it doesn't, you have to live with it.
Stuart, that's something, if the grant suddenly looked good 2 years from now, we might be able to jump into that, right? And change our plan. Like, let's just say the grant guidance came out and said generator priority this year. We could potentially have a meeting and approve moving this around, right? We wouldn't have to wait till.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you gotta chase some of these things, you know, where it's currently occupied as a school, the school security grant, if that ever came around again as an option, because some of my worries is you'd probably lose all your cameras, your phone system, while the doors may revert to
Or
being
lock
locked
'em.
anyways, depends how they're programmed. You know, that I think it certainly has merits to.
Yeah, we wouldn't adjust
do
the
that.
plan because that's voted on by taxpayers. We would then just bring something forward, you know, like we have other projects, Mike,
Right,
through that process. And then
right.
when we redo the plan, we'd say, oh, we did this already with funds and take it off the
Right.
plan. I
Yeah, I
just would
think if
like to
you-
see us put a real funding source there, and not grant isn't one of our funding sources. And again, we want to make this plan a real plan. But if there's not a grant available, how do we plan to fund it if we want to keep it on the plan? And do we just put it in that bond? Or you know, we can't use LoSiP funds for it. Not at center school.
No, but if that turned into the town office building by then, you probably could use LoSiP.
Right. But but on the plan, it's for center school. So
Yeah.
I know I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record.
Yeah.
I just want us to, you know, we know that there could be lots of changes afterwards, but if we're presenting them with a plan, it has to be realistic. And this is the facility we have now, and we don't know that it's anything other. So what other local funds do we use? Or do we? I don't know what that number is because there was in the all-purpose field soccer lighting does, and the open space preservation do not have funding sources either.
Well, I'll take the heat for this one. I'm not opposed to removing the soccer lighting and the turf from the plan.
I was just gonna suggest the same thing, Stuart.
That and they can certainly resubmit at any time, you know, year after year, and I would encourage them to do so if they feel that's their priority. But for, given the limited finances we have in town to spend, 325,000 for lighting, or the turf for, I believe, a lot more than that. In an effort to try to present as best a plan as possible, I'd take those two out.
Looks like we already took
Great.
out the turf field.
Yep.
I'm not saving this, so I'm gonna make a bold move and just hide it. Did it not adjust the plan? It didn't.
Although it doesn't adjust the total
It didn't
either,
adjust.
so-
It didn't adjust the number.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna.
Yeah, so the
I'm gonna
advantage of.
put 0 so we can see it. Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
And the funding source for this, if I follow Donna's model, it's 503. It seems like there's not a lot in year 4 and 5, but they're big notes for some, big moves, some bold projects, bold thinking. And so all of these, Donna, will get moved into our option B, correct?
Or A.
So I have option B as the new school.
Okay.
So I
So
have
these
all
will
of,
stay in option A and the other will be moved into option B. Okay.
Yep.
So that will, have you already done that?
yes.
Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing and let Donna share. That will have seriously changed the bottom line.
Okay. So this is option B with the new school, but there's no bond payment. It's still a note, thinking that it would take 2 years to finish with the construction and then take out the bond. So all of the projects are moved off. All the school projects are moved off and into column A.
Let's put those two.
So I left behind the $40,000 for the whole school generator, 151 for hall school elevator modernization. That would likely be a reserve fund project. So let's just put it there.
Does that have to be in
The new school column.
B?
Yeah. Let's take it off of B, right? Because
Right.
that would be
Yeah,
the new
let's
school.
get rid of it from B.
Right.
Okay.
Leave it in A.
Okay. So then the next thing in B is the lease for the public works truck. $40,000 for continuation of the drainage on Village Hill. 15,000 for open space. That's going to be a fund transfer. 100,000 for refurbishing Wellington Hill engine tank.
Yeah.
So
So it looks
So
like it's in 2
Donna,
years.
scrolling back up,
Oh, I see. Yes, that has.
yeah, so the number's really low right now. So scrolling back up to right above the gray line where you have the committed stuff. All right, right there.
Yep.
So I just want to make sure I understand line 25 versus 26. Line 25 is our Plan B line, right?
yes.
Which is all of those projects, including a school, whereas line 26 is our Plan A version, which is build a firehouse and school improvements instead of a new school and road improvements, right?
But when we had the note, we did a bond that included more than just the school in Plan A.
Yes, because that's
So
line,
they need to carry over.
right, that's line 26.
Right, so we'd still have the bond payment on all of those things that weren't the school, correct? The firehouse.
That's included in line
Yes.
25. It's either line 25 or line 26, depending on Plan A or Plan B.
Actually, you're correct. It's either line 25 or line 26, but
Okay.
either Plan A or Plan B has a note. I don't think there's going to be any bond. I think there's going to be a note, and the note here on A is going to be less. The note is going to be for the school renovation, the firehouse, and the road improvements. But it's going to be less because the school renovations are less than a new school.
Okay.
So instead
Right.
of, we
Line
had,
26.
yeah, so I think line 26 it's not going to kick in yet because we're not going to be done with all of these projects and in a position to go out to bond.
So can you put something in there as a
Yeah.
placeholder for the
Let's
note?
just say the interest is $245,000. How about that?
Well, hang on.
Okay.
That'll be in line 25.
Say
right?
that again.
Line
Oh,
25.
yeah.
is-
Yeah, you're correct. How about this? We need a new line for not a new school, but for a firehouse, school renovation, and road improvements.
Isn't that line 26 you already had?
Yeah.
Line 26 is a bond
Is the
payment.
bond payment. Donna's saying we'd have the note for 2 years, not a note and then a bond payment.
I see what you're saying. Okay, so really 27,
Or could you just relabel 27?
Yeah, just
As the
change
note.
new school to.
How's that? Instead of new school, renovate, right?
Reno projects.
yeah.
Because a renovated school is
$50
different
million
than,
price tag anymore either.
no, than just capital
Or is it?
projects. No, because we said the new school was considerably more than the individual
Right.
projects
So what do we cut that number
that
down?
exist today.
Okay, so we can get that number from the Fryer study. Is that right, Erica? The Reno projects
There's a
plus,
note that, yeah,
plus
but
like
I'm not-
what we're adding.
Yes.
no, well, the Fryer study is a lot more than just what Phil has put in his 5-year plan. So I don't know that we take the number from the Fryer study is about the same as a new school. We're saying just these projects.
Right.
Oh. We're just saying these projects. Okay, so we're saying new
We're saying
firehouse,
the year
school
5A.
projects.
40,
Yeah,
26.
which is just, okay.
110,
Okay.
91.
So this really isn't renovate. This is just school projects.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. So would we need a bond to do these projects? Yes, because
Yeah.
they're too expensive. And this is all totaling 1,227,000. So this is like 1.2 million, maybe 1.3 million for the projects, plus the firehouse, plus the road improvements.
Right.
So yeah, I would just have to work through this. Yeah, I can work on this, before the next meeting and come up with something now that I know what you want.
Okay. Thank you. That answers the question. I was hoping the answer was even simpler to get to, but that answers the question. So so line 25 in year 5A, that 245 needs to go back away. That one, right?
Correct. That would not
Because
exist.
that's not in the Plan A.
But it would be down here, right, on line 26. The interest would fall on line 26.
Except you have to calculate the new number.
Yes, I would. It would be less than 245.
Yes.
I would have to recalculate the number once I find out exactly what we need to borrow. Yeah, you're right. Okay, so I think that the bond payment is not going to show up on this plan.
Right, because you're gonna have year 5 is gonna be a note, so you could take line 27 back out.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Yes, okay. So that's back to my original question. Line 26 is Plan A. Line 25 is Plan B.
Correct.
Okay,
So I will call this 2020, this would be 26. This is 26A, right?
Mm.
And this is 26B.
There you go.
And then you'll know. What do you think? Do you want to think about it for the next meeting?
So Stuart,
Mhm.
I think between the quorum issue, unless we've gained a quorum in the meantime, and to allow Donna time to fill those numbers in, you know, like right now, we don't know what year 5 is.
Yes, and
Maybe,
and year 5 might drift into year 4 if projects move along faster in terms of the school or something like that. Um,
But
I
not
think-
for purposes of this,
But for the
plan.
purposes of the plan, we'll leave it as is. Just
Right.
keep in mind, it is a plan.
so,
Some departments try to, pick something that was approved in the plan, 2 or 3 years ahead of. Oh, it was in the plan for year 3, a few years ago, so now you have to do it. Well, it's a
this is why
very,
we revisit every year.
The
it's a
only
flu-
committed items are year 1.
yeah, it's a fluid document and priorities change, people change. Um, I've seen projects disappear and never come back, and then some new ones will pop up. So each year we have to reevaluate all of them and see where we stand. Yeah, so Mike, if you're thinking of just going to the next meeting, and I'll send out an email to the entire committee begging them to
Attend.
attend just
Oh.
almost a short meeting, hopefully.
We, are we hoping for next Wednesday? Because we plan nothing beyond this, if I'm not.
Yeah,
mistaken.
I
So
that'd
let
be
me
my
make sure
thought,
there's
just-
not something else next Wednesday.
Yeah, I didn't even put next Wednesday on my calendar. Had we actually put it out?
We did not. We went, this was our contingency snow date meeting. And we haven't even had a snow date yet.
Yeah. Hey, with Zoom, you can't have a snow day.
Only if there's no internet.
You can in Texas.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a mess. I'm telling you, we can't even imagine. I have family that has had power and still all of their pipes burst.
Yeah.
Yeah, running, keeping the water going with electricity. Nothing's insulated for this kind of cold for this
I
long.
have friends who just moved down past summer from the Sturbridge area, and they understand cold because they lived their entire lives in New England. So they themselves are prepared for it, but they can't put their hands on the things in their home that they need to have. Like they're accustomed to having things insulated and all that, and they don't have it. They know how to handle the cold, but their stuff doesn't.
Yeah.
That's the problem. The stuff doesn't, and even at this point, even with power, people are it's a mess. I have one family member who hasn't lost power yet, so I'm grateful for that.
And we've been lucky with the last 2 or 3 storms that where power was out for a week to 3 weeks, that it was above freezing. That, it was cool, but at least it was in the 40s and, pipes weren't freezing. So it could happen to us. I mean, we dodged that ice storm the other day.
Right. So next Wednesday, we need at least 5.
Yep. So, if Donald will send me the spreadsheet when you're done with it, it could be tomorrow or whenever. And I'll send out a little note, say, please show up at the meeting. We need a quorum.
As we'll need to vote on it so that it can go to Board of Selectmen for March 1st meeting. And then we present on March 4th to the Board of Finance. So I'm hoping the Board of Finance will be understanding. We do not have a full, complete approved budget to them a week ahead of time. We'll give you a sneak preview that we think it might be, but we
Yeah.
can't say it's been approved.
All right. Anything else to come before the committee tonight? Going once, going twice. Since we can't
Are you gonna
vote,
send that spreadsheet out once you get it from Donna?
yep.
Thank
And I said with a note of, please show up so we can vote on this thing.
Right.
So that's it. But since we can't vote on adjourning, I guess because we don't have a quorum.
I think we can vote on adjourning, actually.
Oh, there you go.
It's not
Okay,
debatable. It's just what happened.
there you go.
I move that
to
we
adjourn.
adjourn.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Well, okay, we'll see you next week and hopefully we'll be done.
Good night, all.
Thank you all
Good
for
night, all.
attending.